district is someone who's not strictly focused on winning that election. That maybe election sometime in the future, but
Correct, right, but there's a big picture to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes candidates in red districts, they go in, just, like what I meant by personal vendetta is that you're just gonna go there to just try to knock, just, I don't know. Like I never talked about, Glenn Grothman, there's rumors about him living in his mother's basement, which isn't actually true. But, like, you could have gone in with it being, I'm just gonna tear him down, exactly, on a personal level, because I hate the man. But instead of going in and saying, I have this message, and we're gonna question what he's doing, but we're gonna question it in a professional manner, we're not gonna question it in a,
I was wondering, did you find that through your campaign, did you find other people were saying, I thought I was all alone?
Oh, absolutely.
And that I'm so glad that there are other Democrats out in Washington County that I can relate to?
Yep, and that was really, for me, the Grothman recall effort was where you heard that the most. And people would say, I wasn't going to sign the recall, I don't like Senator Grothman, but I was going to sign the recall because I didn't want to be the only signature on the sheet. But once I saw hundreds and hundreds of people coming forward and signing, I knew that I wasn't alone. And we still get that even today, and we have a really active county party, really active. We have an office open on Main Street in West Bend, and we still have people who say, boy, I thought I was the only Democrat, and we've been up and running for almost 3 years now. Yes?
There's another, I think, very important role and position for candidates in red districts, and that is to communicate to the parties in Madison and Milwaukee what the people in the rest of the state are thinking. They sort of live at the edge of a blue district, and trying to talk to neighbors on both sides is virtually impossible.
Yep. Yep. To me, if I was running a statewide campaign or if I was running a statewide office, I would have a red district specialist. And I would have someone whose job it was to create literature and phone scripts and canvassing scripts specifically for red districts, because the messaging is different. The way that we talked in my campaign is different than the way you would talk in Dane County. And it doesn't mean that one's more important than the other, it just means that they're different.
And the issues that are important in Madison and Milwaukee should be not even be enunciated in some parts of the
Correct.
state. This is I feel that the Democrats lost that recall of Walker because of what they emphasized when they ran the campaign.
Yep, and to me, it's a learning process. I'm hoping that, I think it's one of the reasons I give up my own free time, my time on weekends, to talk about red districts, because nobody else is talking about them. And maybe if we talk enough and we talk loud enough, maybe we can get some of those changes. And again, I would have, if I was running a state senate campaign in 2016, I would have a red district specialist.
You're aware of the national or the statewide offices are going to be elected outstate, not Madison, Milwaukee. That vote we have to get out.
Correct.
But the decision is really made outstate.
Yep.
In the rest of Wisconsin.
I absolutely understand that. Yep.
So how do you get in a red district program you just mentioned? How do I do that?
Oh, well, DPW actually has a red to blue program.
Yes, I'm
And
aware of
you can
that. That's
definitely
what you're
apply
talking
for that.
about.
No, I was actually saying if I was running, again, so 2016, we're going to elect another state senator. If I was running that campaign, I would have someone on my staff who specifically worked on red districts.
How do I find somebody like that?
How do you find someone like that?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I never had a campaign manager on my campaign. Nobody would take me on because they didn't want a loss, because everything in campaigns is still, do you have 51% of the vote or not? So it doesn't exist yet. Like a red district, yeah, I'm as close as it gets, so take one of my cards and.
I was gonna say, you seem like a pretty good candidate.
Like I never found a campaign manager. I was basically my own campaign manager, and I had a great kitchen cabinet that did a lot of.
I need help with all of that.
Yeah.
Would you have paid them? You would have had to pay the campaign manager, I suppose?
Yes.
You're supposed to, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
But I
donate to
couldn't
the-
even find someone to
Listen.
pay. And that, I had a great time in my campaign, and again, when I look back on it, and people are like, oh, I'm so glad you ran against Grothman, and I had fun. I had a great time, and at the time, I missed my kids, and I missed being able to sleep, but it changed me as a person, it changed our county party for the better. It was a very positive experience, but there were problems with it. Like, I couldn't get donors, and I stopped doing call time 2 weeks in because I couldn't spend 2 or 3 hours of my day raising $50. And so I hit the doors, I hit so many doors, and by being active, and I ran a Facebook page where I shared my story of the day from the doors, and I got a lot of small donors that way, and I just gave my mom the list and said, can you do all my fundraising, and she did almost all of it, because I just couldn't spend the time doing it. I got so tired of hearing people say, I can't give you any money, you're not going to win. But eventually, that picked up, and I raised $50,000 for my Senate campaign. My mom raised about $40,000 of that, so if she was here, I'd give her a big check for it. Yeah. But in the end, I got 31% of the vote. Tom Barrett got 25% of the vote against Scott Walker both times. So it's a 6-point increase in Dem performance. And so to me, to all those people who said, you can't win, I tell them, you're wrong, I did win. Because I got a 6-point increase in Dem performance, and to me, we've got one of the biggest races ever in state history coming up in 2014, and if every red Senate district improved their Dem performance by 6 points, we would have a totally different campaign going on, because we'd be campaigning from a position of power. And so what if we could do this? What if we can get into all of these red districts and we can help change the message and change the perception and shake out another 6 points out of those districts? It's a huge win. And it's too bad that we say that elections is 51% is the only way you're successful. I'd argue that I was tremendously successful. I have won a voice in our community. I can't go to the store without having at least one Republican ask me, why did the Democrats say this, or why are the Democrats voting on this? Not disrespectfully, but because I've become the spokesperson for Democrats, and I can have that conversation. Wouldn't have happened if I hadn't run for office. By the end of my campaign, the Democratic Party gave a maxed out contribution to my campaign. They gave me the maximum amount that they could, because they realized, I got a call from Mike Tate in July. Why are you talking to so many Republicans? Because they should see in Van what was I'm polling. And I'm like, there were 2,500 Democrats in Van. I ran through them in the first month. All I've got is Republicans. And he's like, how's it going? And I'm like, 72% success with Republican women and about a 40% success with men. He's like, that's incredible. What do you need? Money. I need money. And they cut the check. And to me, that's a huge, because that's a change in philosophy. That's going from, we're not going to give money to red candidates, to here's as much money as we can give you, and now we're going to start a red to blue program as part of the state party. That's a win.
Do you know this statistic? I know in Waukesha County, there's more Democrats in Waukesha County than, what is it, Madison?
No, more Republicans turn out in a percentage of voters in Waukesha County than Democrats do in Dane County.
This is about Democrats in Waukesha County.
Yeah,
my
part-time job is chair of the Waukesha County Democratic Party. Waukesha County does have more Democratic votes than any other county in the state of Wisconsin, with the exception of Dane County. And Milwaukee County. The numbers, which have been run back for several elections, indicate that if Waukesha County produces 30% Democratic votes, our statewide candidates win. Obviously, our target is appreciably above 30% this year, but it's in the military, we would call this a target-rich environment. And we plan to function as
statistic that really boggled my
target-rich
mind.
environment.
Yeah.
You mean statewide?
Tammy Baldwin was
reps?
extremely, oh, no, those numbers are ugly. And I've got a very quick redistricting story. And it's just that after the census, Waukesha was still perceived of, I think incorrectly, as just the pure source of Republican wealth. 38% of Waukesha County went for President Obama in '08. We're actually a very dangerous place for Republicans.
You had mentioned Mike Tate, having a conversation with Mike Tate. How much of a factor is it to get the state Democratic committee or board to get behind a candidate in a red district? And do you feel that our state Democrats are kind of missing the boat on and missing that message that how important it is to get into the red counties and the red districts?
I think that until there was someone to point this out, I'm not really big on going back on blame. I mean, I thought it was a mistake not investing, for instance, in my campaign from the beginning.
It's not blame, I'm stating facts.
Different groups have different purposes. Like, it's actually this SSDC who decides who gets the money. Actually, the state party paid me out of their own pocket as opposed to going through the coordinated campaign. So they get to decide, the SDCC and the coordinated campaign gets to decide who gets the money actually in elections. And the state party pays their money into the coordinated campaign. And yeah, that's about as much as I know about it. But that's actually where the money gets divvied out for candidates. They're hired and fired based on winning. So to me, the real problem still is that we still have the perception that the only thing that's a win is if we get a certain number of candidates elected into office. So they're operating under that principle. And they can't change that principle until they're pushed to change that principle. So, if the Dems don't win back the Senate or the Dems don't win back the governor's race, that's considered a loss, no matter how many votes they pull out of red districts. So I can't fix, in the end they get to make their decisions. I'm not DPW. But I'm sure working really hard to make sure that they hear what I have to say about red districts and make their choices accordingly. They have the new Red to Blue program to help candidates in red districts. That's more than they had 2 years ago. I like to call that progress.
They have a program, so is there a specific fund to which people can contribute for
Yes.
Democrats in red districts?
Yes.
There it is.
It's called Red to Blue Badgers. And it's on their website. I'm not sure if Red to Blue Badgers has a Facebook page yet or not. They already have 2 candidates, and you can apply to be in it. And one of the things they look at is how many doors do you plan to do, how do you plan on fundraising, and it's basically, are you a serious candidate? Are you going to go out there and get the message out? Because that's something that we can help with.
Michelle,
That's right, I'm Tanya, but Michelle's a nice name too.
That's me.
sir.
That's me.
Yeah.
Good job.
About how long do you think you spent at each store on average?
So I am not, if you want what they tell you how to campaign, I'm not your person. I threw the rules out the door because I knew I had a different beast. They'll tell you 5 minutes or less on the door. I would spend sometimes 15, 20 minutes at a door. Not always. I remember doing doors with Mark Peterson. Pat would know who that is. He's a philosophy professor, longtime door knocker. And we were doing doors, and he came up, and I was doing a door, and I ended up spending 20 minutes with this couple. In the beginning, it was every Fox News talking point you've ever heard, and the job creators need to have a climate where they can make their money so that they can help the rest. It was and finally I'm just like, anything that you've heard on TV, you're not going to say, and anything I've heard on TV, I'm not going to say, and we're just going to talk about what keeps you up at night. Like, oh, okay, yeah. We're really worried about our grandchildren and the kind of education that they're getting. Bam! Now we're talking. And we spent 20 minutes, and in the end, they were completely agreeing with me. They were saying, the real problem is these companies that don't have a moral compass and they're not doing the right thing. Agreed with me on education. We're going to vote for me, put a yard sign up. And on the way, walking away, this very experienced canvasser from many campaigns said, wow, that was a long time to be on a door. I'm like, well, how long do you think it should take for a Republican to decide to vote for a Democrat? And he looked at his watch, he's like, about 20 minutes? I said, about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I put the time into the doors. You're told to never, never, never go inside of a house when you're doing doors. There were times, not always, but there were times when I would go inside of a house.
Why are you not supposed to go now?
Just who knows what they,
Who knows who or what's in there?
right,
Yeah, safety.
who knows?
Yeah.
There were times, and again, it was based on the situation, there were times that I did it, you're not supposed to do it, so. I'm not the poster
Did you always
child
go
for
with
it.
2 people?
I did not, I always went with another person on the other side of the road, so we're always doing the same road at the same time. But, yeah,
I will say that what you did is what Professor Wyckoff, I think is his name, giving 2 presentations today. He is the one that said exactly what you were doing. You were redefining what it was that the message is.